BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, bringing you all the latest news, analysis and insight you need today on Wednesday the 29th of November. I'm Alasdair Lamont, and coming up on the show...
Isaacson looking for some space, he shoots, he's deflected, Immobile's there and he scores!
No European football for Celtic beyond Christmas. We discussed the fallout from last night's 2-0 Lazio loss. From Rome to Ross County.
In towards the 6-yard box! And it's gone in! And it's Jordan White who gets it!
We assess the impressive start Derek Adams has made back in the Dingwall dugout. And...
I love it, honestly, it's such a good life. I'm really happy there and I just want to keep improving and keep getting better.
What next for Serie A star Lewis Ferguson, as the young Scot continues to be linked with a move to one of the Italian giants.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, let me introduce today's guests. Firstly, the former Celtic and Scotland defender Jackie McNamara is with us. How are things, Jackie?
Yeah, good, thank you.
And we're also joined by Alasdair Mackenzie, a Scots journalist based in Rome. Come stai, Alasdair?
So bene. Yeah, nice to be on. And enjoyed the game last night and seeing a few more Scottish people over here for a change.
Good stuff. Well, I'll assure you that's the extent of my Italian. So lots more to come from Jackie and Alasdair. But before that, let's quickly run through today's headlines. Brendan Rodgers says it's glaring that his Celtic side have to add quality to their squad after last night's 2-0 defeat to Lazio confirmed they'll finish bottom of their Champions League group with a game still to go. It was a first win for Derek Adams in his third spell as Ross County manager as the Staggies beat St Mirren 1-0 in Dingwall. In the Championship, Dunfermline defeated managerless Arbroath 3-0 to move up to fourth. In League One, Hamilton closed the gap on league leaders Falkirk with a 2-1 win away at Annan, while the Bairns were held to a goalless draw in Montrose. And the promising Rangers winger Ross McCausland has signed a new deal at the Ibrox club until summer 2027.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
OK, back to last night's action. Jackie, if I can come to you first, what did you make of the game as a whole?
I thought it was a decent match. I think, it's a bit of deja vu in terms of Celtic playing okay, good possession, even a bit like last season's Champions League campaign. Just that little bit of quality, which obviously you hear Brendan talking about after the match. It's not been massively outclassed in the Champions League games, but just that little bit extra that you need, not just attacking but defensively as well, which is cost them. Given
they had to go and win that game to have a chance of staying in Europe, did you expect to see a bit more of them as an attacking threat in the game? Yeah, I think, again, you're playing against that quality. I think he's tried to make sure they didn't go gung-ho too early and stay in the game and, very possession-based, but without actually hurting the opposition. A couple of little chances with Kyogo and had a shot for distance, but he never really got in behind them in the match to cause them real problems and turning them. But again, I think obviously his bit was to change it late on and try and stay in the game. But as soon as Lazio scored and then getting the second one soon after it, the tie was finished. Alasdair, you were at the game last night. What did you and perhaps the Italian media make of Celtic?
Yeah, well, I think there was a lot of focus on Lazio, obviously, in the state they were in with that terrible result they were coming off and really having points proven. There was a kind of general sense that the whole thing was tumbling towards a 0-0 because Lazio have struggled so badly to score goals this season. So Immobile coming on and scoring twice in 3 minutes. I think the second was the real sucker punch because obviously there was still enough time for Celtic to get back into it after that. But yeah, I mean, Celtic are respected definitely in Italy. There's not a sense that was going to be an easy game. It was going to be an easy win. Everyone still remembers the Europa League matches 4 years ago. Everyone is aware of the fact that Lazio were a bit lucky to get the win they had in Glasgow as well earlier in this campaign. So they weren't being underestimated. And I think that people were generally expecting Lazio to struggle to get a result, which ultimately they did until that final 10 minutes.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, or at least allude to, that they didn't come into the game in great form. Is that a result, or the Champions League form generally something that's keeping Sarri in a job just at the moment?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, one of the things he said after the game, which was absolutely true, is last season they did really well in Serie A, finished second, but at the cost of basically having a dreadful Europa League and then subsequently Conference League campaign. Whereas this year it's flipped around, and doing quite well in the Champions League has come at the cost of playing badly in Serie A. So this is a team that still struggles with kind of quality and depth, enough of that to really, fight on two fronts, which is always the biggest challenge. So for them to qualify in the Champions League with a game to spare is pretty remarkable considering the season that they've had. I think they're a bit lucky with the group they drew, and a bit lucky in some of the games as well, to be honest. But ultimately, I think their defence and their home form is what's got them through. And yeah, Sarri will definitely be safe for a while yet. I think, to be honest, if he leaves, it'll be end of the season rather than during the season.
Jackie, bringing it back to Celtic, though, of course, your old teammate Chris Sutton reckoned Celtic lacked physicality and real belief against what he describes as a bang average Lazio side. Is that fair assessment of how things went?
It's hard to disagree with him. I don't know. I don't think they're bang average. Obviously, they're not in good form domestically. But I went to the game at Celtic Park, and I thought they were there for the taking as well that night. They lost late goals in the match with concentration, and that's the biggest thing at this level. The concentration. If it's not there on either end of the field, you can get punished. And Immobile came on, showed physicality in that one with Scales and chops it inside, and it's a great finish. The one before that, to let a left-footed boy come inside and have the shot like that, which I know they get a bit of fortune with the ricochet into his path, but that's the little things there at that level. Maybe get away with it domestically, but at that level, even though they're not a top European side, Lazio, but they can still hurt you.
Well, let's talk about Celtic's European campaign more generally then. With that loss, Jackie, Celtic became the first British side in Champions League history to go 15 games without winning. How do you assess their overall performance in the Champions League this season?
I think very similar to last season. I think it was a tougher group last season that they were in. You look at it at the start, you think, right, Atletico will be the stronger out of it. The other ones, especially at home, Celtic there's always been a good home side with the backing of the fans, but it just seems to be, I think Brendan was talking about it last night, maybe a bit of frustration from his side, the lack of quality. But I don't just see that in the final third, I see that obviously defensively as well, the real quality and the physicality that you need. If you're not winning games or not creating, can you keep clean sheets? And it's something they've not been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, that brings me nicely on. I mean, I mentioned in the headlines that Brendan Rodgers' quote was, it's glaring that Celtic need to add quality to the squad to be able to compete at that level. And I would just wonder what area you thought, if that was true, then what area specifically needs the greatest improvement. But essentially, I suppose if you look throughout the team, there are areas where if you have a better player in each, then clearly they're going to have a better opportunity to try and get results in places like the Olympico.
Yeah, I think, from the first game, I thought Lazio targeted certain areas to hurt Celtic. You could see that, what they were trying to achieve in between sort of Scales and Taylor, a wee bit last night as well. In fairness to Scales, I think he's come in and done reasonably well, stepping up to that level, coming from Ireland into Celtic's first team out on loan to Aberdeen last year. And it does take time. You can't just jump into that level and expect everything to be great. He'll get great experience from that. But, that is an area that, defensively that I think they've struggled. There's not a lot of backup in the left back area. With Taylor, Bernabe's not pushed them. So, there's maybe different areas there. I know he's missing one or two players as well, with Hatate, Maeda, but they have got a lot of players in their book, Celtic, but they've not been used for, obviously, the manager maybe not seen them at that level. You're going through them all, so I think obviously they'll need to try and change a few things, maybe January and next summer. They've got aspirations to go and push a bit further in Europe, but I think realistically they need to grow it rather than to buy it.
The aim, you would have thought, especially after last season's campaign, where, as you point out, they competed quite well, albeit the results weren't there. The aim surely this year had to be to build on that, to be at least in Europe after Christmas. Why, for you, are they falling short now? Having, if you look back in previous campaigns, for instance, when you were playing, and it is a wee while ago, but they have in the past produced some terrific Champions League results.
Yes, but especially at home. We're playing against like the best teams, the Barcelonas and Bayern Munichs, and but at home we were always strong with the fans backing. But I do think there's a few areas that they're lacking. That it's costing them. When you get these chances, with Chris Sutton and Larssons and Hartsons, they get a chance, they're going to take it. And other ones there that, again, even last year, I think Celtics were actually better last year, watching in the Champions League, creating more chances, but didn't take them. Maybe having 5 or 6 chances to take one. Whereas you see it last night with the quality, they get a chance, it's finished, it's in the back of your net, and that's a big difference. But if they can keep clean sheets and be defensively sound, you've got a chance of going and nicking something away from home. But watching them, you don't think they're capable of doing that for the 90 minutes and keeping that concentration.
Do we, if we're realistic, do we just need to accept the days of Scottish clubs competing in the Champions League are over?
No, not necessarily. I think the recruitment's key to it. And as you said, it's easy just to turn around and blame the strikers or blame the forward players. I think it's a team. Starting from the goalkeeper forward, things there to improve on, and experience. Brendan keeps talking about experience as well, but to go and get Champions League experience cost a lot of money. And it's a gamble. There's no guarantees with that. So I think Celtic's best opportunity to improve is to grow it, and get the right age, and then try and take them to the next level. And I think Ange would have been capable of doing that. You can see what he's doing down south just now, and it's total transformation since he came in. That's what obviously the club would want to try and achieve as well, rather than trying taking a gamble, and which there's no guarantees with.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Okay, let's turn our attention to domestic matters back here in Scotland. Ross County beat St Mirren 1-0 in Dingwall last night, thanks to a late Jordan White goal. 4 points from 6 then, and no goals conceded for Derek Adams since he took charge last week. What have you made of that start he's made, Jackie?
Yeah, it's a great start for him, and you see just how much it changes everything. They've jumped up a few places and looking a lot healthier. When you're changing manager and you get that instant impact. Last night was a massive result for him against St Mirren, and yeah, I'm sure they'll be delighted that they've made that change, and it's working out so far.
Alasdair, I gather you are a Ross County fan. I'm not sure how much you get to see of them in Rome, but you'll be pleased with that result last night, I imagine. And are you pleased to see Derek Adams back in the Dingwall dugout?
Yeah, delighted. I mean, for me, some of the best times I've had as a Ross County fan were with Derek Adams as manager in both of his spells. So he is kind of someone who gets fans excited just because they associate him with success and with kind of punching above our weight a bit. And recent seasons, there's been a slight bit of kind of lethargy about all these relegation scraps that are going on year by year. So yeah, I think for him to come in, he's got two home games in a row straight away to get 4 points, 2 clean sheets. It's exactly the start he wanted. Doesn't seem like he's ripped things up, but when he first was appointed, he said he wanted to make sure there was a solid defensive base and to get the ball forward as much as possible. And he seems to have delivered on that so far. The club's always had a problem this season with just turning chances into goals, but and that's continued the last couple of games, but at least the number of chances seems to have increased a bit. So really happy with that start, and I think he's got a good chance to build on it with the fixtures coming up as well.
Okay, to finish off with, I want to get Alasdair's, I suppose, close quarters view of a man who's been a real star by the sounds of it out in Serie A this season, and certainly and really since his move out there. That's Lewis Ferguson at Bologna. We certainly get rave reviews of him in the media, Alasdair, but I guess you will see a fair amount of him. Just how impressive has Lewis Ferguson been in Serie A?
Put it this way, he's become the single most important player, I would argue, for one of the best Bologna teams we've seen in years. You know, Bologna are up in 6th. They're fighting for European football this year. They're playing some fantastic stuff under Thiago Motta. And Ferguson's played more than any other outfield player in that team. He's first name on the team sheet. He's never been taken off. He's shown incredible versatility playing across various midfield roles, out on the wing, even as a striker, a kind of false nine at times in the last couple of years. And Motta absolutely loves him. Obviously, Motta is a man who knows a thing or two about playing in central midfield as well, so he's got a good eye. And I think the things he's appreciated the most are the work Ferguson puts in on and off the pitch. I mean, he's got the second highest running stats in the league this season, but he's not just doing it as a headless chicken. He's also producing goals and assists in the final third and contributing defensively. So he's really become this kind of all-round midfielder who's now earning kind of speculation, linking him to some of the biggest clubs in Italy, like Juventus and Lazio. So it's been a really impressive step on. His first season was good, but this one has been even better. It's
great to hear, Jackie, isn't it? Are you in any way surprised that he has made that kind of step up and thriving quite so much in Serie A?
No, I think the lad's always been a decent player. You know, I think he done very well at Aberdeen, and it's good to see for the national team. You know, Hickey had a spell there as well, and stepped up after Hearts and went there, and he's at Brentford. So, you know, Doig as well. So it's good to see young Scottish players not just all going south of the border. You know, starting to change their whole game, and that will help the national team in the future as well. So, no, I'm delighted to see that. It's good to see them doing well.
Certainly is. Well, that's all for us today. My thanks to Jackie McNamara and Alasdair Mackenzie, and thank you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with Ian McCall when we'll be focusing on Aberdeen and Rangers in Europe, and we'll take a look into the Championship as well. So if you get any questions for us, send them in to scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. And remember, you can get us wherever you get your podcasts, so if you haven't done so already, just search for the Scottish Football Podcast and hit subscribe. Bye for now.
Hi, it's Amy Irons here. I just wanted to tell you that Sacked in the Morning is back for a new series. We are your survival guide to football management. If you want to hear exactly what goes on in the dugouts and dressing rooms across the world, then we are the pod for you. And as ever, I'll be joined by former Scotland gaffer Craig Levine and some of football's best managers to provide all the insight you could possibly need. And you can find it on BBC Sounds. Just search for Sacked in the Morning.